I sat down in the hospital lobby, alone as usual, looking down at the test result in my hands. Negative. Again. My fifth IVF and still negative. I felt my eyes well up with tears, which I immediately choked back down. I wish I could get pregnant, but at least something would happen. Even if I was to have a miscarriage immediately after, I just wanted to know that even for one day, I was pregnant. Even if it was a false positive, I just wanted some hope. My name is Shadi, and this is my story. I closed my eyes and leaned my head back to steady myself. My life had become a huge mess. My husband was distant and unconcerned with me, hence my being in the hospital alone. He had never believed in the IVF anyway, and he had stopped supporting all my efforts to become a mother after my second IVF failed. My mother-in-law hated my guts. She thought I was costing her son too much money, in addition to the fact that I was merely a barren male puppetry in his house. Who was I to tell her that her precious son did not help with any of my IVF bills, and that I had been hustling it all out by myself for years? Even if I did tell her, would she believe me over her precious son? You see, I had been diagnosed with endometriosis long before I got married. This simply meant that the tissues which were supposed to be only in the womb were now being found elsewhere. These tissues could occur anywhere, resulting in various healthcare problems. In my own case, they were found within my tubes, meaning that my fallopian tubes were blocked. I was taken aback the first time I heard my diagnosis. It made no sense to me. I was a wholesome young lady with good prospects. I never took part in any of the usual shenanigans of my age mates, so I felt that I should at least have this one easy. Now, imagine my shock when I heard my diagnosis. I had never had sex before marriage. I did not have multiple abortions like many girls that I knew. So why me? Why did I have to suffer such painful periods? Anyway, I went for IVF immediately. I did not dilly-dally. I knew what I wanted, and I was ready to go for it immediately. God, the experience was terrible. There was absolutely no emotional support from the center I used. I tried very hard not to blame them. At least, I was the one in need of what they were helping me achieve. Every visit I had, I went alone. My husband never followed me. His own was to drop sperm and reluctantly drop money for the IVF. This was despite him being a wealthy titleman. But he would rather spend millions on club activities or village needs than to put up what was needed for my IVF process. I was basically doing everything on my own. The painful egg collection process was done without his support as usual. I was blessed to have been able to get 11 eggs, which were then fertilized with my husband's sperm. I waited for the specified 5 days to know which of the fertilized eggs would be viable. Alas, only 2 were suitable for transfer. So I was prepped, and the transfer of the 2 embryos was done. Prior to the transfer, I had been informed that IVF is performed using a grading scale to determine the chances each embryo has for successful implantation. My fertilized eggs were categorized as grade C. This was the lowest grade with the lowest possible rate of success. As such, it was no surprise when the IVF failed. I moved on, went to another center where I was treated much better than the first. These people called me and they offered better emotional support, which came just in time as my husband had told me that after this try, he was done giving me money for IVF and also done providing anything for the process. This hospital helped fill that void a bit, thus making the process less unpleasant than it would have been. This time around, the doctor told me that my AMH was low. AMH is a test that was carried out to check the quality and quantity of available eggs. The low figures, he said, were as a result of my endometriosis. So we decided to stimulate egg production and try once again. The stimulation yielded a smattering of eggs. Once again, only one grade C egg was viable for transfer. The transfer was once again done and once again failed. I was devastated. I and my husband went into a prolonged and serious fight. He said he had to have children as soon as possible, and that as a chief, he could decide to take on a second wife who would give him heirs. I convinced him that I would try again. I was not ready to give up. I begged him, and he finally relented. Though he warned me that he would only give his sperm, but he would not help financially with anything that had to do with the procedure. I cut my losses. I rallied around, took loans to fund my third IVF. At this time, we had been married for 7 years. One day, I suddenly got a call from work, summoning me for an emergency meeting. To my surprise, I had been called to receive a sack letter. The reasons they cited were a drastic drop in my productivity. I had appealed to all my superiors. Everyone knew the challenges that I had been battling with. Still, they insisted that this was an executive decision and that my replacement, who had already been hired, was someone with far more qualifications than I had. Dejected, I left the office, licking my wounds as I went. My third IVF was looming, yet here I was. No job, no money. I had to call my siblings and friends to raise the needed money for the procedure. The doctor suggested that I use donor eggs, but I refused because what was my gain in carrying children that were not even mine? Due to my insistence, we went on. We went through the process like the first 2 times before. Once again, we had only one viable embryo for transfer, which after it had been transferred, also failed to implant. I fell. I was plunged into a deep hole of depression. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I was unable to go out, unable to go to church. One lady even approached me with the offer to sell me a baby, to which I refused. I would not be a part of any shady practice. I wanted this baby to be mine. I had to take some time off. 2 years, making it 9 years since I had gotten married. My fourth IVF went the same way as those ahead of it. My eggs were used, and again, implantation failed. Something interesting happened though. You see, before I got my own results, I noticed a young woman crying bitterly. I looked at her. She was young, much younger than I was. So I went towards her to console her, thinking that like me, she was also looking for a child. You can all imagine my surprise when I found out that her tears were because she was pregnant. Ah, pregnancy that I had been looking for was the reason why this one was shedding so much bitter tears. God is indeed a God of wonders. This lady explained to me that she would have to abort the baby because she was soon to get married and the baby belonged to her ex-boyfriend who she had recently had a short fling with. I could not believe my ears. Here was someone who was willing to destroy what I had been searching and praying for years. It was during this discussion that my own test result was handed over to me. I opened it and began to tear up almost immediately. My tears turned to wails as I flung myself on the cold tiled floor, rolling around in the agony of another failed IVF. This lady was shocked when she found out why I was crying. I had been the one trying to console her, but now the tables were turned. Life. One shed tears because she did not wish to be pregnant, while the other wailed because she craved pregnancy and her own child. Well, on to the next. I began discussing my fifth IVF with the doctor. By this time, I had spent almost 20 million naira on these procedures and I still had nothing to show for my stress. The doctor called me and my husband. He advised that we use donor eggs. He stated that the eggs could be donated anonymously in a way that nobody would know. He also said that I would be the one to carry the baby and as such would still be the true mother of the child. He explained at length that the process of choosing an egg donor was long and thorough in order to choose the best candidates who had the best social and genetic makeup. He told me that they even checked the IQ of the egg donors to make sure that each child was given the best chance possible. By this time, I had come down from my high horse. I just wanted to get pregnant. I was no longer bothered about the child being from my own DNA. So we took the necessary steps and thus began my sixth IVF procedure. I was broke, so I had to sell the property that I had inherited from my father. My mind was made up. This was going to be my last IVF. If it failed, I would get a divorce from my husband, tell him to go have kids with anyone else, and then take my own life. I was tapped out. So, this was as much as I had to give. This time around was less painful. I was not being stimulated. No eggs were being harvested as I had finally agreed to use donor eggs. Lo and behold, when it came the time to test, for the first time in my life, I saw a positive pregnancy test with my name on it. I was so happy. The joy carried me for the 2 weeks until I went for my confirmatory scan. My heart dipped when they said that of the twins in my womb, one was growing well while the other was regressing and looking faint. I started praying, begging God not to let me be put to shame. I had sold my properties. I didn't want to lose this now that I was finally looking like I was on my way to success. Then the bleeding started. All through my first trimester, I was bleeding. Still, the one fetal sac remained viable and continued showing signs of growth and development. So we pushed on, we forged ahead, and finally, I had my baby girl, my little bundle of inestimable joy and peace, my light, my child, mine. I didn't even remember that I had used a donor egg. This child was my own, my salvation, my anchor, my joy. She was a gift from God, one that always reminded me that maybe if I had used donor eggs from the onset, I wouldn't have gone through all the travails that I had experienced. My lesson? Sometimes, what we think is the most important might just not be donor eggs or my eggs. There was really no difference. My goal should have been forefront on my mind, not focusing on irrelevancies like wanting to have children with my own DNA. My name is Shadi, and this has been my journey to motherhood.
Hello, everyone. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. It's The reason for this is for you guys to learn from people's stories, their mistakes, their ups and downs, and to empower you to make the right decision. Don't forget, you are not alone in this journey. Infertility is a journey, but it has a destination. Don't lose focus on the destination. The destination is having your babies, so do not lose focus. Most importantly, make sure your mental health is key. I believe today's episode has worked well for you. Learn from it and please share, subscribe, and next week, catch you for another episode. I remain Dr. Global. Thank you.